Hi, this is Rebecca.
And this is Myles from RhinoCo Technology.
And in this video, we want to give you an overview of the two new long-range additions to the VIP Vision Ultimate Series cameras, featuring a 7 to 35mm lens. Apart from the lens, Myles, could you tell us some of the basic specifications of this camera?
Great, Beck. So the first thing about these cameras is they feature a 4K or Ultra HD image sensor, which is basically giving you one of the best outputs that you can have for live video, particularly in daytime applications. The 4K resolution is fantastic for looking over an area where you want maximum detail. And if you're going to zoom in digitally, you've got plenty to play with in terms of that resolution.
Well, that's fantastic. So what application is good for the long-range zoom?
So the normal cameras that most of our installers are using have a 2.8 to 12mm motorised lens, which means they're getting around 100 degrees wide angle down to 40 degrees in the narrowest 12mm setting. So with a 7 to 35, you're actually basically starting at a 38 degree lens angle and going down as narrow as 14. So if you're a long way back from your target area, such as a driveway, and you might be 40 meters back where you need to mount the camera, you'd want to start with this model camera as your selected version, because you're already zoomed in at 40 degrees, but you know you've got that optical zoom to come in a lot closer for better detail.
Do you think it's a great opportunity for using face detection technology?
Particularly if you've got someone coming through, say, a gate or an entranceway. A lot of people confuse sometimes what face detection means in different aspects of the CCTV industry. In terms of the face detection function in a CCTV recorder, we're normally talking about the fact that the recorder can see, much like when you're using a digital camera and sometimes you push down the shutter and it finds a face in the photo.
Yes.
Basically, it's the replication of that in the CCTV side of things to say, we know that there is a human face in the picture, and then it's going to flag that on your alarm log to say, yes, that's the time a person came through that particular area. Now, if the lens angle is too wide and you haven't got enough detail to actually detect a face, then that function's not going to work. So the 7 to 35mm lens would be ideal to say, I'm in a service station perhaps, the camera's set back on the wall, I've got it zoomed in tight to only get the width of the doorway, and then the recorder's going to be logging every single person's face that's come through the door, and then later on obviously you can look through your log and say during this time period who came in, and it'll just go and grab those faces. That's
perfect and quite ideal for many applications nowadays. There's also an SD card slot. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so in the this is the bullet version of the camera, but it's basically the same in the dome, where you take the cover off and you have access to the same connections and buttons. So in this lockdown flap, there is the SD card slot, so that's where you can put in up to 128 gig SD card. Now the normal application I talk to people about using that is that if for some reason there was an issue with the recorder, you could still have recordings being saved onto the SD card at the same time.
Perfect.
Particularly if you've got a recorder in another building completely separate to where your cameras are, you may say, well, if the power went off in that building and the camera still luckily had power to it, would I lose all my recordings? Now, if you had the SD card in there, you could say, no, I've still got recordings on the camera. So it's a good buffer for high security jobs.
Do you think it would also be good for the times that somebody may remove the recorder because they've decided that that's the part they want to...
Absolutely. So places like bottle shops, for example, even though not with this camera, but any of our models with SD cards, there's always an option to offer the client to say, we're going to have motion activated recording to the SD card, because obviously it only has a small amount of storage compared to the terabytes probably in your NVR. But if someone came in an arm hold up and said, give me your CCTV recorder, and you're going to comply, then there's no video evidence for the police when they come back, whether it's 5 minutes or 5 hours later. The idea would be, you know that you've still got those images recorded on the camera itself. So you may have 10 cameras around, they've all got 10 copies of their own video. And
it'd certainly be quite useful, especially when it comes to the police wanting that footage to help you further. I've also noticed that in the box, there was this little cable.
Yeah, so this is to help installers. This is a BNC connection for analog video out. So on this model camera, there's a small terminal here you can plug this cable into, and that means you can have a composite video feed to your traditional video test monitor that you might have on your arm, or a small screen you've been using for the last 20 years on analog, that will let you obviously just set the the angle and the center point of your camera.
Okay.
And then normally you would get down your ladder and go back to the recorder to actually then adjust the optical zoom to suit the
Yeah, so
exact
perfect
scene.
for installations, helping the guys out just that bit more.
Absolutely. So yeah, good function. There are also the wide and telephoto adjustment buttons here on the camera. So purely you're aiming the camera, say it's the center of your driveway, and you say, look, I want the center of the number plate as the center of the picture. You can angle the camera to get that in the center of view, and then you can adjust here and look on your test monitor to see if that's how you want to set it.
Yep.
Or you could go back to your recorder and adjust that motorized zoom from the recorder.
Perfect. Just for our viewers, Myles is going to give a quick rundown on the specifications of these cameras. First one, resolution.
It's an 8 megapixel or 4K or Ultra HD, however you like to say it, resolution camera.
Frame rate.
At 8 megapixel at the highest resolution, it can do 15 frames per second.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, excellent.
Compression.
It uses H.265, which is the latest video codec,
Good.
so maximum video quality for minimum space.
Also SD card.
Up to 128 gig in a micro SD.
Perfect. And the lens.
It's a 7 to 35 millimeter lens in this version camera, which is giving you that 38 degree wide angle down to 14 degrees as the narrowest. So quite a comparison compared to the 2.8 to 12, which most people are familiar with using every day.
Yeah. IP rating.
It's IP67 for both the bullet and the dome models. So
Okay.
fully weatherproof, go right outside in external elements, no problem.
Perfect. And infrared range.
They both feature 100 meters smart IR. So that's sort of the top end of a IR illuminator in an inbuilt situation.
Yeah, okay. What about IVS?
They all feature face detection, motion detection, intrusion detection, and there's probably one I've left out there, but it's not coming to my mind right now, so excuse me for that.
And the alarm output?
It's got one alarm input, so you can trigger with an external detector into the camera, and then it also has one alarm output. So you could wire in an alarm and access control functions in the building and saying, when I've got motion on this movement sensor, I want to trigger the camera, or I want to turn this light on. That's all possible through the interface at the camera itself.
Good, because it's quite versatile then.
Yes, so this is a premium ultimate series. You know, it's basically ticking all the boxes if someone wants basically every function they want out of a top-end IP camera.
What about audio?
It does have an audio input and output as well, so you can feed a standard audio mic input into a RCA socket that's on that harness with the camera, which I can just show to our viewers here, and then also a matching audio output, so you can put it to a speaker locally if that's what you'd like to do.
Yeah, great. Well, look, if you would like any more information on these cameras, either call ourselves or our sales team. And bye for now.
Thanks for watching.